don't hit the like button, don't subscribe. I clearly don't do this a lot or ever.
Each day of this build, I kept learning more and more as I went and realizing the things I should have asked.
Okay, so you've been scouring the internet and going down YouTube rabbit holes, trying to figure out how to build your first gaming PC because you've never done it before and you have no idea what you're doing. You're staring at things like this all day long, wondering which one's the best, and you're not really sure. You're in the right place, because that's been me for the last 2 months. I'm still not sure, but I've been watching all these YouTube videos of experts putting them together and showing us, you know, what plugs in where and what this means and why this is better than that. And now I'm going to put together a video of what it looks like when someone's watched all those videos and read all those tutorials and blogs and stuff and tries making one. Is it going to be successful? If you're watching this video at all, it probably was successful because I don't have the gear to edit this together unless I make this build successful. So, all right, so you're about to pull the trigger. You think you know all the components you're about to buy. Let's walk through each one and I'll give you suggestions on other things to keep researching before you do that. So, first, what to get and where to get it. In terms of your specific components that you're looking for, I'm sure you've read all the different advice on not paying too much for stuff you don't need, like extra cores in your CPU, or overpaying for a graphics card, things like that. Most of that advice is, best I can tell, pretty spot on. I'm building mine for a very specific purpose. Extreme live streaming with multiple feeds in and out and live broadcasting and stuff. So I Googled exactly that. Any specific purpose you have, someone's probably talked about it, so go find that. I built the whole thing first on newbies.com. Lets you pick out all the components and make sure you have it complete and you have everything you need. And then, oddly enough, Amazon had half the components, especially the expensive ones, on sale for 30-40% off the other day, so I just bought it all on Amazon. But building it on Newegg is helpful because then you can make sure you have all the components you need that are compatible, and specifically your power supply. That's apparently more important than I initially thought. Now, as you're going to be able to tell, I'm building this computer over the course of a number of different days because components are still arriving in the mail. You'll notice my wardrobe will start changing here soon. I'll start first with the motherboard. What I've noticed just having it for a day and going through the user manual and everything, research the hell out of your motherboard, every single component. All the different slots and components all have different generations. Make sure that every piece that you plan on plugging into it, this is the best motherboard for it. If you don't know what BIOS is, research that. Find out whether or not you're going to need or want the BIOS flash button. I got the ASUS or ASUS. You're going to notice everyone says that different. Tough Gaming. This is the X570 Plus. There is a Pro. Read all about that if that matters to you, because there's apparently big differences. This one has Wi-Fi. I'm gonna make a whole separate video all about this, if this is the one you got, because there's some nuances to this. The motherboard you're getting, research when it first came out. You'll know how old it actually is, and maybe you want to get one that's a little newer if you're concerned about future proofing. RAM. When you're searching for your RAM, obviously DD4 is the most common right now. I'm sorry, DDR4. DDR5 just came out, but if you want DDR5, you need a motherboard that can take DDR5, so make sure that, like I said earlier, everything's compatible with everything. Also, there is listed on here your speed, megahertz. Okay, so a lot of them say, when you look at them, are going to say 32 megahertz. I got a 3600 megahertz one. That's the fastest of DDR4, I believe. I'm sure experts will correct me down in the comments. And this one actually is RGB, which is compatible with this rainbowy Aurora sync thing that the motherboard has. I'll have fun trying to figure all that out later. All right, next, CPU. First thing that I found odd about it was that the CPU itself, which we know is a very small thing, comes in a large box and is right there, sticking out, very exposed. Something could poke that. I don't understand why they package it this way. There's nothing but empty space in there. Empty space, literally. I went with the Ryzen 9 5000 series. There's the 3000 series, and then there's the whole conversation about Zens. I've had a guy at Best Buy try to explain that to me. Even he didn't really understand it. I guess it's a code name? Either way, I went with the 9 because of my mentality is I may not need all the cores it comes with, but I'm not going to overwork it or have to worry about overclocking, I think. If I need a regular car to get around with, I'd rather underuse a V6 than overuse a 4-cylinder. That's kind of my logic. Thermal paste. Watch 100 videos on thermal paste. Get everybody's mistakes out there about this. You probably won't even need to buy it because a little bit of thermal paste came with the cooler I got anyway. Who knows if there's a massive performance difference on a teardrop of stuff you're going to put on your CPU. What is interesting is that there is a contest on this one, the MX4 Arctic thermal compound, where I can scan something and win $1,000 every month. I don't assume I can win $1,000 multiple times, but hey, why not? Next, the cooling solution for your CPU. There's the air-cooled fan option, and then there's the liquid cooling option, also called the AIO, all-in-one. That's what it stands for. I'll be honest, I went with it because I think it's cooler. No pun intended, and pun intended. I like the way it looks better, and maybe I think everything I read said it's more efficient. Do some research on orientation of how this thing needs to be mounted in your box. Apparently air bubbles can be kind of a thing, and you don't want to get air bubbles in the water pump, which will be in that unit right there. Do some research on that. Also, airflow for the fans, make sure that they're pointing in the right direction. All right, your graphics card. I'm not doing a lot of gaming, so research what one works best for you. I did what works best for streaming, and this particular Zotac one was recommended. Something that's been worrying me, and you can do some research about this, is when it's mounted horizontally, there's sag that you can get, and it seems like it's going to be weighing on the motherboard when we go to assemble it. I'm concerned about that, so I got a bracket that is sort of a sag prevention bracket. That's what I'm going to do just because I'm worried about such things. Next, power supply. I went with the Be Quiet because I want mine to be quiet, and it just seemed apropos. Something that is very important is knowing how much power you're going to need and how much your power supply is going to provide. Something I wasn't necessarily paying attention to early on, but by building it on Newegg, it actually has a little counter at the top that says, here's all the components you've listed, and this is what we estimate you're going to need in terms of power supply. So mine came out to something like 650 watts. I went ahead with a 850 watt power supply, and hopefully that if I decide to upgrade anything, I'm not going to need to upgrade this for a little while. I hope. But definitely pay attention to that if you haven't thus far. All right, welcome back. It's day 2 of my very slow Noob doesn't know what he's doing build. Today the case the SSD and the GPU anti-sagging bracket will go right there arrived. And I got these white extensions. I'm going for a Stormtrooper white and black theme. So I'm pretty much ready to begin the build. The Windows 11 I ordered doesn't arrive till Tuesday because I got like the little USB stick. I'm sure people tell you you don't need to do it that way, and I did. So I can get to that particular stopping point, but I'm going to be taking this very slow as I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm sure you'll let me know that in the comments. So let's start with continuing on with the questions and things to look into and ask as a noob with no knowledge. The SSD, I went with the Western Digital Black, 1 terabyte. This is the Black 850. Yes, the SN 850. It has a heatsink built into it. It's not what I initially went with. I actually went with like the 770 or something. But that shipping got delayed. So yesterday I just ordered this one and it arrived the next day. It's $30 more. It's got the built-in heat sink. Performance-wise, what I read didn't really show much of a difference, but for an extra $30, I got it quicker. That's really essentially what I was paying for. The thing to pay attention to with these, I almost bought a slower one because it was cheaper. I wanted to get a terabyte, and it was like $70. But it was a Gen 3, so my motherboard can accept Gen 4. There's no point in buying the slower one, I figured, but that's one of those little details that I almost overlooked because I was just trying to keep the price low on a number of items. So let's take a look at the case. Right. So the case is pretty standard for a lot of what you'll see. Glass on one side, some RGB lighting in it. It is a Montech. That's Montech, the Montech Sky 1. It seems to be pretty self-explanatory. This opens, pop the glass off. Lots of room. It's got those grommets that are really nice that kind of hide the cables as they come in and out. 3 fans already in there, and its own wiring in there. Now that part is the part that kind of worries me because this panel comes off pretty easy, just slide it out on the other side, and very skinny space in here, and I know there's a whole bunch of wires, a mess of stuff coming out of the power supply that's going to have to come up and fit into this very tight space. So cable management is going to be my nightmare and #1 priority as I try to make sure everything comes up through here and all of that. So I've got 95% of the things I need to get started, but being the person who doesn't know what they don't know yet, I'm going to take the time now to peruse all the documentation that came with every piece of hardware I've got. Manuals and safety information, figure out where I want to put the stickers that came with a lot of this stuff. Even a DVD, ironically, that I'm not going to be able to use ever. I think it's very important to read some of this stuff, especially the power supply. I'm going to be reading a lot of particulars about that. I don't want to fry everything, not knowing what I'm doing. I'd suggest you look at the warranty information and register each one of these expensive products with the manufacturer. Why not? That could come helpful if something doesn't go right later on. And I'm going to leave some information all down in the notes and maybe even on the screen around me here about who I've been getting my information from. And say, hey, I assume they know what they're talking about, and I sure as hell don't. So while getting prepared, one other thing, I did buy a computer-specific toolkit. It came with a screwdriver, a little bendy extension, And I think what really sold me on this one, every bit you could possibly want under the sun, and they pop up. Come on, guys. Really, you're not gonna do it for me right now? There we go. Pops up. And you can pick them all out. One of the guys that I've been watching a lot of, Jay's 2 Cents, is sponsored by iFixit. They look like a far more mobile, held together kit. This is something you keep in a shop, not take up on the go with you. Theirs is nice packaging and good to throw in your pocket and hit the road. I think I put that in the wrong spot.
Hi, sorry, I need to interrupt. This is taking way too long. That was over a week ago, and it was only supposed to be like a 20-minute video of me kind of bumbling my way through making a computer, which I clearly did, but I'm editing it together, and it's obvious this thing is going to be way longer than 20 minutes, and I don't want to burden you with that. So we're just going to stop there with part 1, which is all the components and the additional questions you're going to want to ask before you pull the trigger and buy anything. I'm going to include all additional information in the notes below, links, suggestions, because admittedly even now I don't know as much as I probably should have known before I bought it and put it together, but it's working, and not without hiccups. Each day of this build I kept learning more and more as I went and realizing the things I should have asked, and I'll throw that up on the screen in little notes as we go. So thanks for watching, if you're watching. I'll see you in the next one.